Hey there, my fellow designers and creatives. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to another video in my mega product design course for beginners. In this video, we're going to learn about responsive design and breakpoints. It's a very important concept that you should know as a product designer. We're going to get very technical in this, so make sure to pay attention when watching this video. Now, before I get started, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like on the video if you haven't done already. Okay, let's get started. So here I am on Apple's iPhone 14 Pro website. And as you can see over here, it's a very long website, of course. And we're going to see how this website is built. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to refresh the page so that we sort of set everything back to normal. And you see this animation and then it looks pretty good. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and I'm going to choose inspect. And now we're going to get a bunch of code. We're going to see a lot of things. And this is where things get very interesting and technical. Now, let me explain what's actually happening over here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and set this to a very large number like 1440, right? Now, why did I choose 1440? That's not important. I'm just choosing a very large size. Okay. And what I want you to do is pay attention to what happens as I reduce the width of the screen. Now, and as I reduce this here, the size here also starts reducing. So as you can see over here, suddenly at certain point, things sort of shrink down. All right. And then as you can see, the elements are sort of responsively resizing. All right. And then suddenly over here, they break into a different type of navigation bar. And then when I come over here, they break here again. And then there's a lot of gap on the left and right side. And as we go closer, everything sort of stays the same. Now, what's happening here is that, as you can see, this font size, right? It's resizing to the width of the browser. If we go to different sections as well, again, let's try let's try this section, for example. As you can see over here, that this text elements, these are responsively resizing, right? Now, there are two types of layouts that you can follow when designing websites. One is called responsive and the other one is called adaptive. We're going to look at responsive for now, and I'm going to show you an example of adaptive later on. So as you can see over here, if I scroll down to some other sections of the screen, let's probably go for this one over here. As you can see over here, the elements are resizing, right? And then there is more gap. Let me try to find a better example. Right. Yeah, I think maybe this would be a good one. Okay. No, I think that's not working. Let's try a different one. Right. Okay. As you can see over here, the elements, they're sort of sticking to the right side. That's how this website is working. But in order to understand what's technically happening, let's look at some important stuff. Now on the top here, I have some of these bars over here. And when I click on it, they sort of adapt to a particular size. So this one is mobile small, which is 320 pixels. Then you have mobile M, which is 375. Then you have mobile large, which is 425. Then you have tablet, which is 768. Then you have laptop, which is 1440. And you have 4K, which is 2560. So each of these sections, all right, this is a particular range. These are called breakpoints. So basically a range of pixel widths is what we call as a breakpoint. Now, let's understand why do we need breakpoints, okay? So in this case, Apple has used 4 breakpoints. How do I know that? That's because I've looked at the code and tried to figure it out myself. And I'm also going to show you how I figured out that there are 4 breakpoints. Let me take a simple example. I'm going to start off with 1440. Okay. And let me come to, let's try to find a simple section. Let me try to find this one. Okay. So here, I'm just going to select this element. And as you can see, if I come down over here, you can see that the font size is 120 pixels. Okay. Now let's see what happens when I shrink the size of this. Okay. So as you can see something changed. All right. And now I'm going to find that text over here. And now this text is 89 pixels. So it changed from 120 to 89, right? And when it changed to 89, we came to a different breakpoint, and that is a different set of values. Okay, let's take a look at another example. Let me show you this one. Okay. So here we have the mockup on the left, and then we have some text on the right. Okay, I'm going to start squishing this. All right. You can also see here in the top, the navigation changed over here. So if I open this up, you can see that we have these 3 link items. And then the moment I go a little bit in, they change. All right. Let's go a little bit further. And you can see here now that this part, where was that? Yeah, I think I lost it somewhere, but I think it doesn't matter. Let me just increase that width again. Okay, there we go. So yeah, over here, so we had this phone and then some text over here which says all day battery life, and I'm going to bring that in. Okay, and then yeah, so the phone is over here, and then here it says all day battery life. So here the layout changed, right? It was one beside each other, and now it's one below each other. All right, and we're going to shrink this, and then it's going to maintain. So the reason we want to have certain breakpoints is because we want to ensure that whatever design we make, they look correctly adapted to that particular screen size, right? Because in this screen size, in this width, it would be really hard to have the image on the left and text on the right, right? There's not enough space, right? But in a bigger area like this, if I were to go to that place, there's enough area, right? So you have to define what these breakpoints are when you're designing your website. Now let's try to understand what are these standard breakpoints, right? So the smallest one is 320 pixels, right? Which basically means 0 to 320. And 320 is nowadays considered an outdated screen size. There are a very, very small, tiny percentage of people who are using screens which have a width of 320 pixels. So the basic you want to start off with is usually 360 for Android phones. And then you have another one which is mobile M375. So 360 and 375 are pretty much the ordinary mobile portrait breakpoints that are there. You can start off with 375 or you can start off with 360. It doesn't really matter that much. Then you have another one which is mobile landscape, which is 425. So if you rotate your phone, you get a lot more screen size in terms of width. And then that's another one. And then you have tablet, which is 768. So the smallest iPad usually has 768. And then you have a laptop, which is a little bit bigger one, which is 1024. And then you have an even bigger laptop, which is 1440 pixels. And then finally, you have like a very large display, which is 2560, right? So we have so many over here. And ideally, the recommended industry practice is to have 4 breakpoints, right? So the way we would define it is we would choose a mobile portrait. And then the next one would be a mobile landscape. And then next would be a tablet. And then the next would be a laptop, right? So these are the 4 breakpoints. Now here I'm in Figma, and what I've done is I've actually figured out what the breakpoints are, and I'm going to show you how I figure them out as well. And I'm going to show you over here. So you can see that everything that you see over here, all the color properties, all the spacing properties, all the font sizes, every single property is going to stay the same for a screen width of 0 to 734. Right? And the moment it hits 735, the font size changes, as you can see over here. The gap also changes, as you can see over here. Right? And the moment you move from 834 to 168, you can see that the nav bar is completely changed. You can see that it's a totally different nav bar, as you see over here. And then the moment you go ahead and you hit 169 pixel and all the way above, you can see that it's a different layout altogether. You have a lot more gap on the left and the right side. Now I've just said 1440 pixels over here because this is a 1440 screen size. I just took a screenshot from my 13-inch MacBook Pro that I'm using. And my 13-inch MacBook Pro has a width of 1440, which is why I've mentioned 1440 over here, right? But anything which is 1069 pixel and above is going to have the same properties, right? Anything that is 1068 to 834 is going to have the same properties in that range. Okay, so now let's go to Chrome and try to figure out how to find these values. Now, there are 2 ways of finding out these values. One is more of the technical and the complicated way, and the other one is the simplest way, right? So I'm going to start off over here by coming down to the laptop breakpoint. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to start shrinking down like this until we see the change, right? So somewhere over here, it changes, right? Now you can obviously use the arrow keys up and down, as you can see over here, until you can see the change. All right, there we go. So the change happened over here, right? So the change happened at 1069. And that is exactly that I've mentioned over here, 1069 and above. Now, let's try to understand how to figure this out in a complicated way. So I'm going to click on this element. So to just select a layer, and I'm probably going to select this layer. Now, what you want to do is you want to select elements and sections which basically change in spacing and sizing, or you see some sort of visual change. And you're probably going to want to select the parent section over here, which is this section over here. And I'm going to go down. All right. So now what you're going to see over here is when I click on this section, you can see there's something that over here that says at media, only screen and max width of 1086 pixel. Now, when you see at media, it's usually called as a media query. That's sort of a development term for what designers call as breakpoints, right? And if you find it difficult to find this, just search for @ and then type media, and then it's just going to filter out everything that has that, right? So whatever values that are there, that are applied over here, right, that is going to stay until 1068, all right? So now let's go keep shrinking this down. And as you can see, things are nicely moving in and responsively adapting, all right? And at this point, you can see that this changes from having many links outside to just having a hamburger menu, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this, and I'm probably going to select the navigation bar, right? And here you can see that this thing where you have only 3 elements is going to be visible only for a maximum width of 833 pixels. So if I go back to Figma, we saw 1069 and above, all right? And then we have 833, and also we have a middle breakpoint, which is 1068 to 834. All right. So as you can see here it says 833. All right. And now let's go in a little bit more further. And this time this section is going to change. So I'm going to select this and probably select the main section over here. Okay. And I'm going to break this. Okay. So as you can see over here it says that this particular layout is going to be visible only till 734 pixels. Right. So here I have 734 up to 734, and then from 734 it becomes 735 and goes all the way to 833, and here we have a different layout. Now, what is something that is important to understand is that in this case, right, from 0 to 833, only this area is changing, right? You can see the gap over here is very less and the gap over here is changing, right? But the nav bar stays the same. And from here, 1068 to 834, and from here all the way above to 1069, this left and right section is changing, but the nav bar stays the same, right? And the nav bar changes only when you move from this breakpoint to this breakpoint, okay? But this section, as you can see over here, the left and right gap, they stay the same. So what I'm trying to say is that in these 2 breakpoints, the main hero section is changing, but in these 2 breakpoints, the hero section stays the same and only the nav bar is changing. So what that means is when you move from breakpoint to breakpoint, you don't have to change every single element, right? In this case, the nav bar is going to be the same over here and the nav bar is going to be the same over here as well. But the only difference that's going to happen is in the hero section. So depending on your website, you have to identify what elements do you want to remain as the same and what elements do you want to change the settings for, right? That is very, very, very important. Now I'm going to take a look at another website, which is Tailwind CSS. I'm going to right click and then choose inspect. Okay. And I'm going to start off with 1440. And let's just look at some of these sections over here and see how many breakpoints they also have, right? So this is the largest. 1440. I mean, this is not the largest technically. 2560 is the largest, but we're going to use 1440 because that is pretty large enough. Okay. So let me start shrinking this down and see if anything happens. Okay. So nothing is happening. It's looking good. Nothing snaps. You know, everything seems to be normal. All right. All right. Everything seems to be normal. Okay. So we have something that changes over here. So somewhere around 994, we're going to figure out what the values are a little bit later. All right. So this is our second breakpoint. The first breakpoint was basically this one where we have all the 3 columns. And the second breakpoint is basically where we have just 2 columns. Okay. Let's see if we can find another one. Let's go in a little bit more. All right. There we go. Let me just go to the top section. If you can see, we can find anything. All right. No, looking good. Let's look at this section and let's see if something changes. Right? No, it was 2 columns before and it's also 2 columns now. It's great. Perfect. Everything seems to be fine. Right? And here again, right? So here something changes, right? Here now all of them go one below the other, right? All the testimonials before it was 2 column and now it's 1 column. So that's the third breakpoint. And then let's go a little bit further over here. All right. And it looks like there are 3, but there are actually 4. So let's try to look at that again. We didn't look at the nav bar, right? So you can see that we're going to start shrinking this again. So this is the first breakpoint which is the larger one. Okay. And Okay, so here we have the second breakpoint where the layout changes. And let's go in further again. And here in the third breakpoint, the nav bar changes, but everything else remains the same. Everything else remains the same, right? And then finally, when we go a little bit more down, right, in the fourth breakpoint, it becomes one below the other. There we go. This is looking good. And then nothing changes, right? So now there are 4 breakpoints. So let's try to figure out what the breakpoints are. So I'm going to select this one because this was 3 layout and then became 2 layouts. So I'm going to select the parent element over here. Okay. And you can see that this is the maximum breakpoint. So we need to go to the next breakpoint. All right. So we need to see where it breaks. There we go. So it breaks over here. So maybe I need to select the parent element of this, which is this. Now, sometimes if you don't find it, that's okay. It might be very complicated to find it sometimes over here. And if you don't know how to inspect element, it's totally fine. But what we can do over here is we can just do trial and error and try to figure this out. So we want to find the point where it breaks to 3 columns, right? So I'm just going to push these numbers up. All right. And we can see that at 1024, it breaks to 3 columns. So here in Figma, I've gotten a screenshot already and I've said that 1024 and above, right? And the next one is 1023 to 768. So let's try to find that. Okay. So in the next breakpoint, it's actually the nav bar that sort of shrinks. So there we go. 768. All right. So over here. Okay. So 788. I'm going to go a few more down. All right. Few more pixels down. And then 768. The moment you go to 765, it breaks. Okay. Sorry, 767, right? So 1023 to 768. And then from 767 to 640, we have this nav bar. And then anything below 640, I should change these to 640 actually. Anything below 640, from 640 to 0 is going to have a different layout. So now all of this is going to change from 2 columns to 1 column the moment we hit 640. So if we hit 640, you can see that it's still 2 columns. Now the moment we go to 639, you can see that it breaks to 1 column, right? And then after 639, everything stays the same. So here as well for Tailwind, we have 4 breakpoints. So when you are designing websites, it's very important that you understand what breakpoints that you want. And as you can see over here, Tailwind has used the standard default values, 1024, 768, 640. Now 640 is not really an industry breakpoint, but that's totally okay. It doesn't have to be. As long as your design works and makes sense, you can break the standard breakpoints, right? Now, you can also go ahead and add another breakpoint over here. If you want, you can choose to have 5 breakpoints. You can choose to have 6 breakpoints, but only add a breakpoint only if you really, really need to do it. Now, the other thing that I want to mention is that as you can see, as I scale things, the text is also manually scaling over here. And that's because this is used the responsive layout. Now, let's take a look at an adaptive layout. Now, here I'm on LinkedIn. And now LinkedIn uses an adaptive layout. Now, let me explain what an adaptive layout is. So I'm going to go ahead and choose inspect. Okay. And I'm going to set this back to 1440 so that we can start from the top. And now as you can see over here, when I start resizing, you can see that the sections are not really resizing. Like you don't see the text width changing. The whole layout suddenly snaps and changes, right? So you can see over here, the moment I came a little bit closer, it suddenly snapped and you can see that all of this is sort of fixed, right? None of these will resize. If I go in a little bit more further, you can see that the top nav bar changed, right? And here again, suddenly they snap and you don't see anything scaling or resizing over here. The text, the length of the text, all of that stays the same. We'll go a little bit more further in. All right, here the nav bar changes again. So here we have a couple of labels. And then the moment I go in, the labels go away. And then here again, we see all of this becomes 1 column. Because here LinkedIn hasn't designed it with a responsive layout. It's more with an adaptive layout. All right. And here again, now here things start scaling in. All right. And that's totally okay. Right. But as you can see over here, it almost feels like LinkedIn has many breakpoints, right? So let's take a look. So this is the first breakpoint. Okay. And this is the second breakpoint. All right. And then this is the third breakpoint where the nav bar changes. Okay. And then here is the fourth breakpoint. And let's see if we can find another one. Yep. There's a fifth breakpoint because as you can see, the labels go away. Right. So that's the fifth breakpoint. All right. And here it's a 6th breakpoint. So LinkedIn has 6 breakpoints. All right. And then here again, this is the 7th breakpoint because the element suddenly moved in. As you can see over here, there was a lot of space. And then I went in and then it became 7th breakpoints. And now things suddenly start adapting. All right. Now, let me show you something a little bit more interesting. I'm going to go to 768, which is sort of a tablet breakpoint. And this is a screenshot from my iPad. And you can see that the design and the layout is pretty much similar. Let me actually grab a screenshot so we can see this in better detail. So I'm going to copy the screenshot and then just come over here, copy that, and then paste it over here. There we go. Now, ignore the size. But as you can see, the layout, all of that is pretty much the same. It almost looks an exact copy of everything, right? The about section over here, the icons on top, and then you've got this hamburger menu with this reactivate premium text link, right? They all look the perfect same. Now, let me go and find it for mobile. So if I come down all the way down over here, so let me choose 390, which is an iPhone, okay? And I'm going to get a screenshot of this, copy that, and then I'll come over here and paste it. Now, this is what I see when I took a screenshot from the browser. And this is a screenshot from my mobile phone, right? Now, you can see that the tab bar is at the bottom. Here, the tab bar is on top, okay? We don't have any open search bar. Here, we have a search bar. Here, the logo is in the center. Here, the logo is on the right. So, what this also means is that sometimes companies decide to go ahead and have different designs and layouts for mobile and the web. Now, in this case, they decided to keep the tablet designs the same. But the moment they came to the mobile breakpoint, right, or at least after a certain breakpoint number, they decided to change the viewing experience if you looked at it from your laptop and show it differently if you looked at it on your mobile phone browser. So sometimes this is a design call that you have to take. Now, another thing that I like to show you is this Chrome extension called as Window Resizer. Now, what this basically does is it allows you to change your browser width for testing. Now, let's say you're a designer and you're testing on multiple breakpoints and you always going to test on these specific breakpoints because you have your website set for these breakpoints. And what you want to do is you can click on any one of these values, right? So for example, if I go ahead and set this to 1024, you can see that it automatically adapts the browser to a width of 1024, and you can go ahead and look how it is, right? So rather than trying to figure out what the breakpoint is and going into inspect element and changing it over there, you can automatically resize it over here. If you want a custom one, you can set that as well. So maybe I want to set this to 1000 and it automatically is going to reduce that to 1000. Now you can also go and rotate the viewport. You can do a bunch of other stuff. You can even choose your custom breakpoints as well. Now these are the ones that are super standard that has been spec'd by this Chrome extension. But if you go to the settings and you go to presets, you can go ahead and choose your presets. So you can actually set the presets for your particular website. So let's say I was a designer at Apple, I would go ahead and set 4 breakpoints that Apple uses on their websites for me to quickly check the designs on each breakpoint. That's pretty much it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. If you did, let me know in the comment sections down below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more amazing, awesome content. And I'll see you guys in my next video. So till then, take care and bye-bye.